Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching. I want to introduce you to a good friend of mine, Dr. John Marcotte. John has been an equine vet for over 30 years. We've worked on a lot of horses together through that time. He has a lot of information. You're going to really enjoy getting to know him. We got this Equine Herpes Virus, the EHV, going on right now, and I thought this would be a great time to bring that up. He's also a helicopter pilot. So, guys, thank you so much for watching, and we're clear for takeoff.
And this is rolling. All right, babe. Bye. Love you.
Good luck.
Bye, sweetheart.
Dr. John, we've been trying to set this up for a while. Thank you kindly. So, everybody, I'm here with a very old vet friend of mine, John Marcotte. And we've been friends since, what, 94, 95?
30-some years.
30-some years. That's crazy, huh?
It is.
So, Dr. John, you're mainly a horse vet. Why don't you tell us a little bit about being a horse vet in Oklahoma?
That a little bit like living in Nevada. There's a lot of nostalgia to it, but it's not probably quite the cakewalk most people think it is.
Do you think a lot of people think being a vet's easy?
Yes.
I don't know. I've never thought that would be easy. I've always thought, as a horseshoer, I've never had somebody call with a 2:00 horseshoe emergency.
Well, I guess that's part of it, but it seems like there's a lot of nostalgia that goes with equine practice. That's kind of accepted in small animal practice that you don't do emergency work, isn't it?
I don't know. I think small animal people still get the dog that gets into.
Well, it's kind of gotten more common for small animal practices to refer everything to an emergency clinic.
Oh, okay. So there'll be people that are just set up for that.
Right. There's emergency clinics that are.
So that a regular small animal vet can have a 9 to 5 then.
Yeah.
Okay.
They'll have a 9 to 5, and they send everything that's an emergency to an emergency clinic in the area, and they down where I'm at, most of it goes to a clinic in Tulsa, and they send them back in the morning when they're stabilized.
So why did you become a horse vet?
I got out of high school and I was riding colts and drinking tequila, and I figured that wasn't really a good life to live, and changed my direction and thought I'd go to vet school.
So you didn't go straight to from high school to college?
No.
You were a horse trainer for a while?
Well, I broke colts for a while. I don't know that I'd necessarily call that a horse trainer.
Okay.
I worked for other people.
It wasn't easy to get back into vet school back in those days, so you must have had pretty good grades.
In college.
In college, okay. So you were serious by then?
By then, yes.
And did you want to be a horse vet from the beginning?
Yeah.
All right, so you were geared toward that the whole
right.
time. Anytime we have something big, we go to you, even though you're 2 hours away, which, by the way, thank you very much for coming up here to see me. But you get horses from, like, I was there one time and a trailer pulled in from Minnesota. So you've got like a pretty all-encompassing practice.
We provide a service, and we try to help people. And that's becoming less common all the time.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
And I've always gotten more gratitude out of helping people than the financial income first. I think the helping people is a better way to start, and the financial income comes behind that, not in front of it.
That's true with almost every business. If a person would do what they love and try to do it to the best standard, the money will follow generally.
Work-life balance becomes much less of an issue when you enjoy what you do.
Oh, yeah. Except for the work-life balance of your family, because you got to have family members that are also either understanding or pulling the sled the same direction. So, and your wife works in your
right.
vet clinic.
She works in the clinic.
So that helps, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Usually.
And so she's kind of the ramrod. She'll break kneecaps to
yeah
the collector.
That's the one.
So there's something going on in the world right now with this equine herpes virus, EHV.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us about that? What it is?
Equine herpes is basically a respiratory virus primarily that is like any herpes virus, it has a tendency to lay latent in lymph nodes, and it flares up intermittently. Depending on which source you read, there's somewhere in the neighborhood of 80% of horses that are persistently infected with that virus.
And it's been around forever, right?
It's been around forever, yes.
So what's happening right now?
Well, we've got an outbreak of the neurologic form of it, which is a little different strain in that refer to it as a hot strain, or in other words, it replicates really fast, and those horses get a real high viremia, or their viral level in the bloodstream gets really high. And that's in general what causes it to become a neurologic or a meningitis encephalitis problem. But it is a more aggressive strain of the virus, and usually there's probably in the last 60 days there's been 20 some little outbreaks of that across North America.
Oh, really?
And we don't hear about most of them because most of the time it's one or two horses.
But this one that they're talking about right now in Texas has really kind of stormed the.
It really has, and it's not something to ignore by any means, and you need to have, be careful with it, because it is a very very dangerous virus with high mortality rates. But when these things happen, it's because they got an outbreak that originated from a point of equine concentration, and so there were probably several horses at that event that were exposed to it. And one of the problems with that one is they didn't know, nothing showed clinical signs while the event was going on. It was a few days later.
Which would be common, right?
Well, not usually. Most of the time it's something that shows up at the event, and you can quarantine it. You can stop people from moving, or
so if a horse has been lying dormant in their cells and they get it, how long after they are exposed to this strain until they have symptoms?
Well, it's usually the incubation period that you're talking about is usually 10 days or less. Usually it may be up to 14.
So they could have contracted they could have their exposure at the event, and then 10 days later 17 horses or however many.
Right. You don't really know what all's exposed yet.
Are they getting it from drinking water out of the same bucket, or are they getting
Not necessarily. It can be spread by aerosol routes, like, a lot of respiratory viruses. They can, cough and sneeze and that kind of thing. It can be spread by fomites, which is basically a reference to any kind of clothing or materials or boots or stall forks or water buckets, that kind of thing. You can pick it up off a nasal discharge off of stall walls and that kind of thing. And it doesn't live for long extended periods of time on surfaces, but it can live there for days and
long enough.
But a lot of times you just don't know when they start shedding it.
All right.
And
by shedding it, that means when they become contagious.
Well, that's when they become contagious. Yeah, they get the infection. It incubates for some period of time, and then it flares up, and they get viremic, and they start shedding virus in their nasal secretions, and they are quite contagious at that point.
And if a horse gets it, is that a death sentence? Or?
No, not necessarily. I mean, there's, according to the textbook, the most common presentation of that is they get a little unstable for a couple of days and they get better. But the bad thing about that is there's a lot of those horses that we might never knew had it. However, they probably were contagious, and they might have never had the diagnostics done that would justify confirmation.
Okay.
And there's a lot of horses that probably have a lower grade symptoms if their immune system's better. If they're just less susceptible to the virus, then they might not get nearly as sick. Those ones that that actually get down with it probably have less than a 40% recovery rate when they get recumbent.
And so, what does a horse owner do? If you think your horse has been exposed, what should they do?
Well, the typical recommendation on that is to check temperatures twice a day, and carefully monitor their temperature, because usually, and there's no always in biologic systems, but usually when they get viremic, and especially when they get high viral levels, they will run a fever. And
Now, a horse runs hotter anyway. They're like 100 degrees normal. Is that correct?
well, anywhere from 99.5 to 101.5 is the normal temperature.
Okay.
102 is a fever.
So, so if you have a horse you think is exposed and you have 102, is that an alarm?
that would be an alarm. Yes.
Okay.
And it often gets higher than that, but not. That's all kind of a balance on the exposure and the immune response at the time. But those horses they'll usually run a fever, and if you have them isolated when that happens, that means that you're protecting the rest of the herd or the rest of the public, and that then you can manage it by controlling the inflammation and antiviral things like valcyclovir and anti-inflammatories. Basically, is the means of controlling. And valcyclovir has shown some pretty promising effects on inhibiting herpes virus in horses.
Okay.
So,
Do
there's
vaccines
things,
work?
well, that depends on what you call work.
Do they prevent horses from getting the disease?
No.
So it's like a COVID vaccine.
Well, when they've done the trials on any of the killed products, they've never been able to demonstrate prevention of clinical disease with killed vaccine. Now, there was a trial in Europe that showed some benefit from the modified live vaccine, but the biggest thing that you get out of the killed vaccines is a decreased period of shedding. And the high antigen vaccines are a little better than that than others. But when I say they've never been able to demonstrate efficacy against the neurologic form of that virus with the killed vaccine, that doesn't necessarily mean that it doesn't do that, because it's somewhat related to the challenge and the immune status of the animal at the time, and whether or not you get sick is always a balance between the challenge and the immune status at the time.
Sure.
And
You have
if you take a research project and you're injecting a wild strain of the virus IV or blowing 5 billion virus particles up a horse's nose, that's a little bit different than having something walk by 5 feet away that coughs with aerosol spread. And there's probably some benefit to that. There's the United States Equestrian Federation requires, when we write health papers to any USEF sanctioned event, which is mostly any horse show, that those horses have been vaccinated with an approved rhino vaccine within 6 months.
Okay.
And if we write a set of health papers to a racetrack in Oklahoma, and I think most of them are this way regardless of the state, but those horses have to have been vaccinated within 60 days. And we have to be able to verify that vaccination. They want the serial number of the vaccine, and they want the expiration date on
The
that
whole works.
vaccine and the date it was administered. And that typically, if it was administered by the owner, they wouldn't have all that information anyway. So they
Right.
they want to know that it was administered by a veterinarian to keep everybody honest. But the rodeo world doesn't really have any of those requirements in place. And, so that makes it a little bit more questionable as to the vaccination status on a lot of those horses too.
So I was a big believer in vaccines. You know, I thought the government was telling me the truth until COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And so I now kind of feel like I don't trust vaccines. Do vaccines work?
Now the COVID vaccine was a little bit different deal to begin with. That's different vaccine.
Oh, it's a totally different. But once you go down the vaccine rabbit hole and you start hearing about polio and some of the things that changed back then, you know, I'm now a big skeptic, and I didn't get a COVID vaccine, thank God. But but now it's cast, you know, all vaccines.
Vaccines are evil.
Well, not even evil, but I just don't trust them.
Yeah, I get it. You hear that from different sources here and there, and you know that usually it's somebody in the acupuncture world or a chiropractor or something that's telling you that the vaccines are all evil and they cause all kinds of problems. And there's that little organization called the Food and Drug Administration. Most of us have heard of it at some point.
Yeah, FDA.
And there are certain requirements that are for those pharmaceutical products as a whole, vaccines especially, that they have to be safe and they have to be proven effective for what they're labeled to prevent.
And do you think COVID did that?
Well, now COVID was released kind of on an emergency basis and with a lot of political pull and misinformation that was involved in it, and you know that there was a lot of things about that whole disease that was you know somewhat questionable.
Yes,
to say.
And you're somebody who understands the chemistry.
But there's also the avalanche of social media that comes with that creates a lot of confusion.
Absolutely, which was my next question in the Equine Herpes Virus, EHV. If you look at social media, we have hit a pandemic catastrophe with this EHV. There's people saying, the NFR is going to have to be stopped.
Well,
is it that bad?
With proper precautions, you should be okay with those events like that, but you need to be real cautious about where you're dragging it around, because that started down in Texas, and it started a few days after after that event had dispersed, and then a couple of the horses from that event that went to Guthrie then came down with the disease without intentionally having traveled back and forth. And by the time we knew it was going on, it had already dispersed out somewhat. And, you know, that we were kind of past that incubation period for those horses that were originally exposed in Texas.
But if it's spread.
But then if we start new incubation periods for those ones that started in Guthrie, we have to start all over on exposure. And that first day that they came out, social media was talking about somewhere between 17 and 25 horses dead from this. And really, for several days, there was only one that was even documented as affected. Now, there's several more now. And, you know, there was one horse that went home and showed clinical signs after it got home and exposed other horses at home. And that was confined to that person's residence. And you know, the problem with Guthrie is that it exposed the event horses, and we don't really know how many of them were exposed. So that kind of creates another possible quarantine situation, and what they've asked right now is those horses that were at that event stay home and monitor their temperatures.
So if I'm a rodeo cowboy and I'm wanting to go, and I've been checking my horse's temperature, but if I get him a vaccine, then I should be good to go wherever I want. No. Okay. So what do I do if I want to keep going?
Are you tired of the questionable pork from the grocery store? Hi, my name is Jacqueline, one of your personal ranchers here at CJW Ranch. We raise pigs the way they should be raised, out in nature, where they have fresh air and sunshine. They also are free of hormones and vaccines and antibiotics. They are naturally healthy, so you can be naturally healthy. You can sit down to dinner with complete peace of mind that what you're feeding your family will not only taste amazing, but will make them feel amazing.
And I don't have
You
a
know,
horse that's sick.
giving the vaccine is not necessarily contraindicated, but realize too that when you give that vaccine, you're stimulating an immune response to a lesser form of those proteins, but sometimes you'll run a fever from the vaccine.
Okay.
So
So what do I do?
you give the vaccine, and then what? If he runs a fever, what do you do with that?
Right. Well, that's what I'm asking.
And that is a big question. I mean, if I don't know that I've got an agreement or a disagreement with giving the vaccine at this point. It would have been better to have them vaccinated before, but that's just not the way it is sometimes. And
So if I have an unvaccinated horse, I probably shouldn't go.
well, probably not. But then again, the vaccinated horse doesn't necessarily protect it against the clinical disease, and doesn't necessarily do that. Now, no vaccine is 100% effective, but that is a very hot form of the virus. So the good thing about the vaccines is it does decrease the number of days that horses shed the virus in general, so it makes them less contagious.
So how long would an unvaccinated horse shed?
Well, it just depends on the horse,
Okay.
but that's pretty variable on how long of shedding period might be there. But there are subclinical horses that shed that we don't know it,
Right.
and that's probably where these kind of things originate.
Sure.
And but we have
So do
immune
you,
systems, and
do you think we're
most-
still going to have an NFR this year?
I think they'll have that hard this year. They've got a lot of things in place to protect the contestant horses, and they're putting a lot of restrictions on entrance and movement with the horses involved at the
Do
national
you
finals.
think they're going to make them wear a mask?
No, I don't believe we're going to have that kind of problem. But there will be temperatures taken twice a day. They have to have health papers written within 7 days of arrival.
Okay.
They'll be checked in with exams when they're checked in. They put in a travel ban on those horses to where they're not able to move in and out, and there's a lot of precautions that they're putting in with it, because that is the basic discipline that this is in your your rodeo horses and your barrel racing horses, and that's a lot of times these your different hunter jumpers and barrel horses don't speak to each other.
Right. No, it is. It's two different disciplines, two different worlds.
And those people don't cross paths very often.
Nope.
And those people that have Arabian show horses are fairly separated most of the time, and even roping horses in the quarter horse industry and the rodeo horses are somewhat separate, and
Yes.
not as much, but they don't go to the same places,
Right. Right.
and so it does kind of create little different worlds where your exposure is much less likely, but not. It still can exist with transfer back and forth between people even. But,
Sure. Or you get a horse transport company that doesn't wash their trailers good or something.
Mm-hmm.
You could certainly see a guy taking roping horses to Nevada and bringing jumping horses back.
You bet that could happen pretty easily, but of course, most of the people that are going to the national finals are pulling a $200,000 horse trailer anyway, so they're hauling their own.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And that is a big difference with the rodeo horses is they're not usually using commercial transport systems and things like that.
What about people transferring it? So would a horseshoer have to worry about this?
Sure. I mean, a horseshoer could transfer it between farms on their clothing.
Okay.
Veterinarians could do that. You should be aware of that potential for that to happen.
Yep. I've seen one guy post that he's only going to do one barn per day. So it was a farrier friend of mine in Texas, and he said, just so my customers understand, I will only do one stalk per day, and in that way, every night he can disinfect tools and clean sweatshirt the next day type thing.
Sure.
All right.
And that is possible.
Yep. Well, this podcast is called Final Approach because I like to interview high achievers and pilots.
That means we're both getting old.
Well, yeah, maybe. But the thing that's really amazing about you is you're a helicopter pilot. So tell me how you became a helicopter pilot.
I don't know.
I'd never forget when you called me, said, "Hey, yeah, I'm learning how to fly a helicopter." I'm like, I look at my phone. Is that Dr. John? Oh, hey, seriously? But so what prompted that? Where did that come from?
I think when you spend years doing one thing continuously, sometimes it's good to intermittently focus on something else. And in an introductory ride, I found that I was required to focus completely on something else, and I wasn't thinking about the things that I normally think about. And it was kind of a refreshing change, and it was an enjoyable thing to do.
So you took your introductory ride, and how long after that did you sign up, or did they land and say, "I'm doing it"?
Oh, I don't know that I really paid that much attention to it. We just kind of scheduled another one, and it evolved into taking flight lessons, and it wasn't a real structured deal. The instructor told me I could fly good enough. I just needed to do my written stuff, and that took me longer to sit down and do that than it did the flight part of it. And that.
So how many hours did you take before you went and got your license? Do you know?
I think it was somewhere 60 to 70, somewhere in that
Okay,
ballpark.
so like most pilots,
Yeah,
fixed wing.
yeah, probably.
Was the written test hard?
Oh, I don't know. Like any test, it's
Well, you're a vet, so you've taken a lot of tests.
well. I mean, taking tests is it's for some people it's easy and some people it's hard. It just depends on the material and your level of interest in that material. And it something that you don't care about, it's hard to be interested in, and pay attention and retain anything about it. And most of the things that are on the private pilot's test was pretty required information. You need to know this so you can land at a airport.
Yeah. I know you went down and took care of my daughter's horse in Louisiana in your helicopter one time. And then I was at a farm and I met you and you landed with your helicopter. But then you called me one morning and said, "Hey, guess what happened this morning?" And you crashed your helicopter. Tell us what happened.
Well, I still don't completely know, but I lost the FAA said something hit my tail rotor, and the tail rotor cut the tail off, and we found a spot on the ground.
So you were doing peach orchards that morning?
No. I was going to go dry out the rodeo arena is what I was going to do.
You were trying out the rodeo. All right. So and had you finished the rodeo arena?
No. I was going to go get fuel before I went and dried out the rodeo arena, and I'm sure glad it was about empty because there's no way I got on the ground if it was full of fuel.
How many gallons did it hold?
No, I think that one was 40.
Okay, so 250 more pounds.
Yeah.
What was the useful load on one of them things?
That one was just the whole thing. Takeoff weight was about 2,500.
Do you think like a bird hit your tail rotor? Is that what they're thinking?
They really didn't have any real answer to that. There was no blood on the tail rotor. They just said something hit the tail rotor.
Did you think maybe
I did just fly over a waterfowl reserve.
Okay, and maybe a hunter.
It could have been I know there were some vultures out there, but there wasn't any blood on anything, so I don't know.
All right, so you're flying along. Were you like 300, 350 feet? I can't
Yeah,
remember.
about 300 feet, about 90 knots.
90 knots.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened? What did you feel? What did you see?
There was a loud boom, and the helicopter turned sideways, and that was they had told me that what would happen if that ever happened, and that's exactly what happened. And
So what is it?
you,
What happens?
well, you the helicopter will start to spin, but you have less than 3 seconds to shut the engine down, and if you don't do that, it's just going to spin, and you have no control. So what I was able to get the engine shut down quick enough, and it was a relief when it kind of stabilized and straightened back out.
Okay, so it went sideways. Rotor's this way now.
No.
No.
It just turned
Oh,
horizontally.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
So the rotor's still parallel to the ground.
Yeah.
But you're just facing the other direction.
Right.
Okay. And to kill an engine in a helicopter, is it pull the mixture out? Is
Well, the engine didn't have to be shut off. You just had to completely disengage it. So you take all
Throttle
the
back.
torque out of the system,
okay.
and you go into an auto rotation, which it's basically it's just catching air. It's coming up through the rotor blades. Which, when you have a tail rotor, it flies just like it's running, but you're going to land.
Okay. But without a tail rotor, not so much.
Not so much. That was anything we've ever practiced, but when you get to the end of that auto rotation, you're usually doing somewhere around 70 knots forward ground speed.
Okay. And how fast are you descending?
Well, I don't know that I could really tell you that. I was just trying to keep it level.
All right.
But when you get close to the ground, you usually flare it or tip the nose up, and that spins the rotors faster, and it slows you down. But I was unaware of what was going to happen when I did that, and when I turned the nose up and charged those rotors, that put torque back into the system, made the helicopter turn sideways, and it hit the ground, 40 foot long and 8 foot wide. It tipped over, and I was lucky enough to survive that. I'm not going to say it was skill. It was more.
Yeah, but you didn't just survive. Like you didn't break anything, right?
Well, I broke my nose, but that fixed it a little bit, and I think I broke a couple ribs, but we've all done that.
Just in life.
If we've been around a horse long enough, we've surely broke a rib or two. I mean and my nose was crooked anyway, so I think it straightened it out a little bit. So I think it actually helped me.
Well, I don't. Just so you guys know, I don't recommend it. But after that happened, how long till you flew again?
Well, I flew that day with a friend of mine that got me into the helicopters and brought his up, and we went and found parts. But they to get back in and fly on my own was it was probably 3 or 4 months, I guess, probably.
And was that a little nerve wracking?
Yes, it was a level of stress that I wasn't aware of until I shut that engine down for the first time.
Well, so you got to concentrate on something else again,
Yes,
huh?
yeah.
But then you got another helicopter, and you continued to fly for quite a while.
Yeah. It made farm calls fun.
Oh yeah. Well, it was fun watching you come in. When I'd be at a farm and you'd be coming in, that was always.
The time savings and the expense of flying was kind of a wash. It really wasn't that much more expensive, but it sure made it a lot more entertaining. And as long as you knew what you were doing when you got there, you could take what you needed. It wasn't like having a vet box, but it worked.
Yeah, you didn't get a whole rig on a helicopter. Did you ever have a long enough break where you lost currency, where you felt really, really strange getting back in?
No,
No,
not really.
because with my last plane, I had to get the motor overhauled, and they couldn't get cylinders. It was during the kind of the COVID time,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like 10 months. And when I got back in, it just didn't feel natural again. So I didn't, I've heard with helicopters it happens really fast, but
I don't. I think it's a lot like riding a bicycle. I mean, the first couple times you pedal, you get to feeling it again. It comes back, but I don't know that it's all that bad. I'm sure in stressful situations, there's a certain amount of reflex that needs to occur without thinking about it, and you probably want to avoid those
Yeah.
until you're comfortable in there. But I think we all get into those positions
Oh yeah.
inadvertently. Stress.
Did
is
you
a
ever take
state.
it to instrument level, or
No.
so you got your private?
Yeah. I don't know why you'd want to fly a helicopter in instrument flight.
Yeah.
There's towers around there and things like that. You're flying too low to be in instruments.
Right.
I know you can, but I don't really see the reason for it.
Yep.
Not in my world.
Right. Right. What is the what altitude do you usually fly in a helicopter?
Usually 300 to 500 feet above ground.
Yeah. So you really are in
Right
danger.
down there with the towers. Yeah.
Yeah. Huh.
The airplanes are up higher than that, and their helicopters are small. Airplanes often going quite a bit faster, and you're better off to stay away from them. But it'd be easy to get run over by a helicopter or by an airplane.
Yeah. 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 Would you recommend your trade to a youngster?
I really think so. That it depending on you better like it.
Oh man.
That's the thing about it is that when everybody talks about the work-life balance and work-life balance is, that is a thing, but it's a different thing for everybody. And if you enjoy what you do, then work is not a problem.
Right.
But if you hate what you do, go to law school.
Yeah, I can't imagine liking that more, but
Well, I mean, you don't have to like what you do. You just you do it for 30 hours a week, and you charge a lot of money for it, and then if then you don't need a conscience to sleep at night.
well, one beautiful thing about both of our trades is we are not going to be replaced by AI.
No.
AI may make some decision making easier. I don't know if it will for a horseshoer, but maybe for a vet, you could put symptoms in and
Well, and yeah, I mean, I think there are certain aspects of that are somewhat replaced by AI. But if you look at that with AI with the mechanics, that doesn't work very good there either.
yeah, you still need somebody with a hand.
And
They
a
can
little
turn it
common
around.
sense to figure out that that's not really what's going on,
Yeah,
and we're not really parts changers.
yep,
You've got to adjust the foot,
yeah, yeah.
and
So when it does come to lamenesses, what do you think is the biggest problem with? Why do we have so many lamenesses? Is it farrier related? Is it breeding related? Is it conformation? Is it just what we're asking horses to do?
it's a combination of all that. Conformation. I mean, we've bred horses to be more agile, which means there's more muscle mass and less bone, less foot. That's not bred for hardiness. That's bred for performance, and that doesn't help things. And when you have horses that are more aggressive athletes, they do things that are certainly harder on their body. And when you're doing excessive movements, that causes more problems. And if you're going to compete today's arena, I think regardless of what discipline you're in, most of the time you're going to have to be at the edge of soundness in order to be competitive at the top end.
Oh yeah,
A comfortable horse trains better than a sore horse, and it's hard to be competitive with the old time foundation horses that that's like taking a feed truck to the Indy 500. You just they're sound horses and they're good for a lot of things. It's just they're not competitive in most of the
speed events.
of today's arenas, and they're not that type of horse. We've changed our genetics for that discipline to be more specifically directed at performance, and you can't push the accelerator down hard enough on a minivan to blow the engine up. But on a high performance engine you can.
Right.
And the same thing to some extent applies to horses, and the more we get out of them, the more maintenance we're going to have to put back in them. And if we do it in a appropriate manner, these horses will last quite a while. If we do it in an inappropriate manner, they're not going to last that long.
Do you see one thing as a problem more than another? Like, do you see more sprained tendons than you do founder, or?
That's more discipline dependent. I mean, race horses have more stifle, knee, and ankle problems. Western performance horses have hock problems, stifle problems. Quarter horses have navicular problems. Arabs almost never have a navicular problem. I mean, they, a lot of it is breed and discipline dependent on where we're putting pressure on the horse.
So when it comes to diagnostic, I know you have ultrasound and you have a thermography camera, you have the X-ray, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
What's the most important? What do you need to see the bones more than you need to see the ultrasound, or?
Well, honestly, the exam.
So the guy who's actually watching
the exam's probably the most important part of it, and the history, because you take a good performance horse, they're not sore in one place. They're sore in several places. And some of the things that we might just on the top see in our standard lameness exam may not be even relevant to the owner's presenting complaint.
Okay.
Because you're not necessarily, you're not in any way, shape, or form looking at the horse in its working environment.
Right.
We're trotting it down the driveway, and we're doing flexion tests, but
not saddled.
But not saddled. We're not asking him to run as hard as he can and stop and turn around, and
right.
So when you're not doing the lameness exam in the area of discipline that they're working in, you're already kind of in a position where you're not necessarily looking at what you should be looking at, and sometimes things show up there that are irrelevant to the presenting complaint, but they're there.
So tremendous amount of detective work to figure out what to work on.
Well, first thing, maybe we ought to listen to the owner. Who'd have thought that? That a history is wonderful information.
Good starting point.
Videos of the horse working are useful information. The lameness exam is useful information. Radiographs are useful information. The thermal imaging is useful information, but it's all just information. And we compile this information, and then we need to put that information together in some kind of a reasonable decision as to what we should do. And rarely do you ever see a single site lameness problem on something that's been going on for any period of time. And I'm not talking about a sole abscess. I mean,
right.
But more of these things are performance limiting problems that we're still taking them, trying to use them. They're just not performing well. And that's really expensive. The sole abscess, we're not going to put them in the trailer.
Right.
And so we're not paying entry fees on them. So that...
the sole abscess is also so acute.
Yeah.
It's not... It is a grade 5.
Right.
So do you have a package? Like if you have a horse you just can't figure it out, do you say, okay, well, I don't know for sure, let's try this kind of shoeing? I know it's not a wedge.
No, well, no, I'm not opposed to wedges. I'm not opposed to any.
Yes, but there are some vets that the wedge is like...
You fix every problem in the distal extremity of a horse by putting a wedge shoe on them and pulling the shoe back.
And unfortunately, that has invaded the vet industry to a bit of it. There are horses that benefit from that, but there
are horses that benefit from that.
Tremendous number of horses that don't.
Right.
And that becomes your only way of shoeing. So I haven't shod for you for a long time, but I shod for you long enough to know that we did everything.
And I think we need to look at what's there and look at how the horse deviates from what the average sound horse is on their shoeing, and push them that direction, but not necessarily adhere to it completely, because they don't all need to be at the same angle.
Okay.
And they don't all need to be at a 4-degree palmar angle with a 52-degree hoof wall angle and 68% toe support. And I mean, that is not what we're talking about. But if you have a horse that has a underrun heel and a long pastern axis and their palmar angles at a -4, if they're not navicular today, they will be before long.
Right.
But the same thing applies to that horse that has a very upright pastern axis, and say they've got a 4-degree palmar angle, and you take that horse and you stand him up to an 8-degree palmar angle and pull that shoe back, you straighten that pastern axis up even further, you made him choppy, but you actually increased the coffin joint angle, so you put more load on the navicular bone when you did that.
Right.
Fair?
That's fair.
And so you have to adjust the shoeing on the individual horse to their conformation, not to a cookbook recipe of they should all be shod this way, and if they're lame here, we put a wedge on them and pull the shoe back, and that fixes it. And we know it does not always work that way. But
well, I knew you thought that way, and I was just trying to get a vet to say that. So, so that's awesome. Yep. You know, for us, we often are working without a vet, and so if I got something I can't, and I don't have an ultrasound or an X-ray, but I'll go with the Omni breakover type bar shoe, and oftentimes that makes a horse as comfortable as I can make it without diagnostics. And so yeah, I didn't know if you had. Well, I'm sorry, ma'am, I can't figure this out for sure. Let's try this shoe and see if it makes it feel better. But you don't really have.
no, I really I don't have a specific shoe that I necessarily like better. There's certain things I don't like. Clogs.
Right. Yeah.
I don't like open toe pads. I mean, they just fill up with whatever they step in, and
those can put a lot of pressure on the sole.
yeah, and they don't clean unless somebody cleans them out, and usually you can't get under there to clean them out anyway.
Yeah, you gotta have very.
There's some things I don't like in shoes, but there's not really necessarily one shoe that I think is absolutely the best, and I don't personally like telling a horseshoer what shoe to put on a horse, because I think there's usually multiple ways you can get the same mechanics, but if you ask somebody to use materials they're not used to, then it's not going to work out well.
Well, that always made you such a joy to work with, because you never, in fact, I don't know how many horses we did together back when we first started together. We did a lot together, but you never come and say, Chris, you got to do this. You come and say, hey, this is what I see. What do you see? What do you think we can do? It was always like that. You still do that with Jace?
That's mutual respect is what that is. And that's also another way of stating ethics. I mean, but you can't be, there are some people, if you provide mutual respect to, they will not appreciate it.
Oh yeah.
And on both sides of the wall here, I mean, veterinarians and horseshoers alike, and because God knows what I do is always correct, and what everybody else does is wrong. There's between feet and dentistry, the only person that knows anything about it is the one you're talking to at the moment, and that. But that's kind of understandable, because most of the time, everything that we're talking about there is very subjective.
Sure.
There's not a lot of objective information most of the time.
And even if there's so many exceptions to rules. And so you might have a study that says 60% of horses have this happen if you do this. That means you also have 40% of horses that don't, Well,
and part of that's because that foot is not the whole leg.
Right.
And you can't disarticulate that off of the horse and think you can separate that.
And the difference of a few millimeters of sole depth can be the absolute difference between a sound horse and a lame horse.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it's a very interesting trade, and it's always been such a pleasure to work with you. It was just too far logistically, because my practice was not just a farrier practice with the school. But man, those times where I did come down, I learned so much whenever I got to work in your clinic, and that was very cool.
But, I always enjoyed having you down there. It's a shame we're not doing that anymore, but
Yeah, I think Jason's got a lot of good out of it, though.
yeah, those guys have done well down there, and I've sure enjoyed their attitude toward things.
Oh,
And
you know,
they just,
If you don't
They're-
like Jason, his boy,
their attitude is to do a good job, not to enhance their ego,
right?
and that's probably something that I think we all had to get by it at some point. And I don't really hold that against anybody, but boy, it really is detrimental to things a lot of times.
Oh yeah. What is the name of that curve where in the beginning you think you know everything, and then the more you learn, it's a Crutchfield curve or something like that. But the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. But farriers for sure.
Once we get to where we know everything, we get stupid really quickly because we no longer learn anything once we know everything. That
What I found from my trade was that I'm 57 now. So 47 was what I feel was like my last really good year, because I was physically strong enough and still really enjoying it, and my body wasn't hurting, and I was still learning. So everything was, so 47, that's where I peaked. And then as my body deteriorated and every horse started hurting more, then even though I still enjoyed shoeing horses, the aches and pains that came with it kept it from being as enjoyable. And so, but now I got my knees replaced. And you've got one knee replaced.
I did.
Just one though, huh?
Just one.
Yeah, but having them both replaced, how was that for you?
You can't disarticulate parts off of the body. Have you noticed that? If it was just the knee, that'd be okay. But but what I've found in my world is that it hurts more to do things that I used to do all the time. But I'm a little slower to get out of the way.
Yes. Oh, so I get knocked down a lot easier. My feet just don't move.
Have to be a little more cautious about getting in a bad position. And but I mean it's I'm sure it's probably worse than this in the farrier world. But there was a presentation at the Equine Practitioners Convention 2 or 3 years ago that showed statistics that 80% of equine veterinarians have had a job-related injury that kept them out of work for at least a month.
Wow.
And but sometimes when you look at some of the things that people do, that's kind of understandable. I mean, don't stick a stomach tube up their nose standing right in front of them. That's probably not a good idea. And don't take a 2-year-old colt and try to stand behind him and take an X-ray of their stifle. He's a little prone to outburst. Don't do that.
Right. If you're gonna be dumb, you better be tough.
That's usually the way that works. But
are you able to kneel on your artificial knee?
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt you?
No, it really doesn't. I can kneel on it. It works. There's no nerves in it. I don't know how it could hurt me.
Well, it just feels so weird, and like walking around, or if I were to crawl around with grandbabies, that's uncomfortable. It's not like it hurts. It's just such a strange feeling.
But I've been kicked right in that artificial knee, and it doesn't hurt. You might get a little bruise on the skin, but
Yep, I have too.
It doesn't hurt like a knee with nerves in it.
Right. It's a lot less strong. Mine are not as strong as they were.
The strength of the muscles around it. Of course, I'm not. I didn't sit up and watch that procedure when they did it, but they have to take it all apart in order to drive those ends on there. So I'm sure there's a fair amount of damage that's done in the muscles. It takes a while to repair, but the strength, I think there is a difference in the strength of your legs afterwards. And it.
Do you need to get your other one done?
It's not really bothering me that much yet, and I might pick another part to replace before I do my other knee.
Are you thinking shoulders or hips?
Well, I don't know. I don't know where to start. Maybe shoulders. I'm thinking shoulders might be a better spot.
Yeah. I hear that one's a tough one.
I'm not sure. I'll just have to see which part breaks down the worst next.
So I know you're in your 60s. Are you planning retirement day?
No,
No. So you probably won't ever.
no, I think you just probably die in practice, I would think.
I think if you do, you'll be a lot happier until that time.
Yeah, probably. I don't want to sit around and watch soap operas.
No,
But,
no. You got anything you want to do? Do you want to? Have you thought? Oh man, I'd always like to. I don't know, go hunting in Alaska or something like that.
This job would be a lot more fun if I didn't have to charge for it.
Hmm.
But not really. Alaska's cold. Have you heard that?
What is it?
It's cold up there.
Yes. Have you been?
No,
Oh yeah.
it's cold up there.
Yeah, I was in the summertime. I did a clinic up there one time, and
Uh-huh.
there's 11 horseshoers showed up.
Uh,
And I'm telling the lady, she's a horseshoer. She hired me, and I said, "I'm so sorry. Usually there's more horseshoers show up at my clinic." She goes, "Well, what do you mean? They're all here.
that's the entire state.
All 11 of them." So it was. Well, sir, you've been a wonderful guest. I usually ask people to give me an inspirational saying. Do you have any of them?
Not the socially acceptable. I don't.
All right. And how about jokes?
Probably none of those that are socially acceptable.
I thought that might be the answer. Well, this has been a long time coming, and just so y'all know, it's Sunday, and Dr. John texted a couple hours ago, "Hey, what are you doing this afternoon?" And I said, "Come on." And so we made it happen, and I'm very, very grateful. I've been wanting to have this conversation for a long time. So anyway, thank you kindly.
Thank you, Chris.
Well done. Finally dropped. I knew it was going to.
I've dropped it several